one of the bloody market stall holders.
Do you know what I mean?
You're right,
Have me orange.
Hello and welcome to the Sesame Podcast with Kat and Tip.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Very well.
I am. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, it's been a nice week.
Good.
Yeah, it's been good. Weather's been lovely.
Yeah.
Been nice and chill. I've had a little bit of time off work.
Yeah.
Went to see Much Ado About Nothing at the RSC with Freeman Regiment.
Oh my god, you went?
Yeah.
Oh my god, and you didn't tell me?
I'm telling you now.
And I didn't even get an invite.
No.
I'm in shock and disbelief. Wow, was it good?
Really good.
Was
yeah.
it? I really want to go. Yeah, was she really good?
Really, really, really good.
I love Much Ado.
Set
what was the
around,
set design like?
Gorgeous.
Oh my god, was it?
Really, really good. You'd have.
Would I have
There's
cried?
one bit towards the end of the first act that you would literally have wet yourself up.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to go, aren't I?
Yeah. So went to see that.
Yeah.
She was great in it.
Obviously.
Obviously. Yeah. Then had a nice chill weekend.
Nice.
Watched Doctor Who on Saturday.
Yeah.
At the time it went out on broadcast.
Mm.
I could have watched it.
I watched it live broadcast.
I was going to say I could have watched it at like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
But it felt wrong.
Oh really?
It felt like I considered it and went, no, it feels wrong.
Oh wow.
So just stayed off Twitter all day. But yeah, overall.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Oh, that's weird. Normally I say that to you.
I know, I've switched.
Oh my
turned
god.
the tables.
No, I don't like it. You go first.
Because you're only going to interrupt
I'm not
me in a
going to
minute
interrupt you.
anyway.
I promise I won't interrupt you.
I really liked it.
Good.
Really, really liked it. My favourite of the season so far.
Good, yeah. Do you know what? Because I've been a bit conflicted. Because I think it's like the most entertaining, visually stunning, different, unique, and beautiful story that we've had in a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been conflicted. I've only got like a few niggles that are just me nitpicking as usual. So like I would want it like a 9.5 like I did with Lux. But they're so different like story-wise that I'm like flip-flopping because I'm like, oh, but like, because I'm letting my like entertainment bias get in the way.
Right.
So I've just been like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But no, yeah, honestly, I agree with you. Really, really, really sound story.
Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fresh.
Yeah.
Like it was so nice to feel like there was a new, like, really distinct voice telling a Doctor Who story.
Yeah, because after I watched it, I was like, we wouldn't get that kind of story from Russell or Moffat or Chibnall or anyone that we've had, any kind of white middle-aged man.
No, absolutely not. Like,
Do you know what I mean? It was
and it would feel
weird
if they attempted it.
Yeah.
Like, I know we were joking last week about, like, I'd be annoyed because I wanted to write this story or whatever. Yeah.
But you could not have written that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It felt very authentically
experienced, sentimental.
Yeah, it just felt like a really authentically black story.
Yeah.
From my obviously, I can't really speak to the authenticity of that.
Yeah.
But it just felt really honest and sincere, and like there was so much heart and soul in it.
Yeah.
And it really bled through.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really liked this one.
Mm-hmm.
Again, couple of nitpicks.
Yeah.
So it doesn't quite hit it's not like a perfect story for me.
It's not a perfect 10, yeah. But it's not even the story that I've got an issue with.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that this has been a bit of a Marmite one for people.
Of course it has.
But not even just like the people you'd expect.
Yeah.
Like, not just like, oh, it's a story in Africa and like all the characters are black or like non-white and like all of that.
Yeah.
I saw some like legitimate criticism there, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I can understand.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not obviously the bigots.
I know, that was my first I had my first experience with one today.
First experience with one? Yeah,
like proper experience where they quote...
Oh, like a direct interaction.
Like I put like a little, not even a review, but like a mini comment on how much I loved the episode, and they quote tweeted it. And I was just like, block! Bing. Not even entertaining that. Block. Beep, 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 beep. Block, 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 block. I was like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Don't want to see anything you have to say.
I imagine there's a lot.
Incredibly racist. I was like, don't agree with anything you're saying. Bye.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I imagine there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
After this one.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't seen too much.
I was going to say, fortunately, I've not really seen anything.
That's a lie. I did see on the train yesterday. Someone put, did anyone actually understand anything that happened in this episode? And then I was like, okay, I'm not even going to entertain that. I was like, no. I don't want to hover over this too much because I don't want it to go into my algorithm or everything just be hate on my Twitter. Absolutely not.
But I think that's maybe the main criticism, the main genuine criticism.
Well, that people didn't understand.
That people didn't understand it, and maybe the story was quite convoluted. I don't think it was.
I was going to say.
But I can understand.
Just because you can't share someone else's experience doesn't.
But I don't even think it was that. I think it was because it's a very dialogue heavy episode. It's a very talky episode. It's essentially a bottle episode because most of it is within that barbershop.
That's so funny because when I was on the train and I was thinking of notes and things like that yesterday, I was like, oh, it's quite like a tight little bottle episode. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to say that because Liam's going to have a go at me because I'm going to use it wrong. So you saying that. You saying that, I was like, yes.
You can definitely tell that Anura Alarms is a theatre writer primarily.
That's what I wanted to interrupt you with.
Go on.
Because you said it's very talky, and that's my, not criticism, not nitpick. Structurally, you can tell he's a theatre writer writing an episode of television.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, in some parts, I was a bit I'd have tweaked that in this section. I'd tweak that bit and I'd just tighten that a bit because it's very, dramatically driven, very dialogue heavy, very talky. It starts to not go off track, but you can tell when I was watching it, I was like, and this is where I'm flip-flopping as well, because I was like, it's nice to have something very different and to have someone who writes for theatre and is writing a television episode, because it does kind of go away from the natural structure that you kind of get drilled into writing, how to format an episode. Absolutely.
Formula,
absolutely. So it's going away from that, and it felt like that, and it was nice, and I was like, oh, I'm enjoying this. This is a nice.
I think that's another reason why it feels fresh.
So fresh, yeah. Because it's not hitting the same formula as what you get in week in, week out, which I liked, but then also in the same breath I was like, okay, I would have tightened that, okay, I would have changed this a little bit, I would have done this, but that's not deep. Do you know what I mean?
I think, yeah, because I saw some criticism that it was very dialogue heavy and very dialogue driven.
Yeah.
But
however, no.
That didn't bother me.
No, it didn't take away from the story. It added because it was a story driven, and I like how visual and descriptive some of the dialogue was, what you would miss from someone writing for solely a television episode. So I really liked that, and I think that's why I got emotional during it as well, because it was just beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely a really sort of poetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can tell that he's a writer's writer.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He obviously loves the craft, and it's all then self-reflexive, because then that I actually really liked that it was quite dialogue heavy, because it's a story about stories.
Absolutely, yeah.
Specifically, stories being passed down, and that oral tradition. No sniggering at the back, please. And how big a factor that is in sort of traditional African culture, passing down these myths and legends and tales of and folklore, and then tying that into the whole thing of this being a space to exchange stories and parts of your life with people, and this lovely sort of mixing pot of lives and culture, and I really, really liked it. I thought it all tied in thematically, just beautifully.
Yeah. What I really loved when the doctor sat in the chair, and all I was thinking was, oh god, this could go terribly wrong if you just shove off. And I remember thinking, I was like, if you just shove a fucking weeping angel on that screen, I'm gonna hit the roof. I was like, I don't care. I want something genuine and from the heart. And then when he started telling Belinda's story, I was like,
but also, if you get a weeping angel on the screen,
well, you know what happens then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine as well if like he didn't actually know that? So weeping angel and everyone there was just... Anyway.
Like,
fuck.
Yeah, sorry.
That doesn't make sense.
It's been a minute since I forgot about that.
Yeah. Whoops. I was very pleasantly surprised that we didn't have to sit through like a little like mini Doctor Who episode within a Doctor Who episode because it's just sharing a story.
Yeah, I think it could have been cool to have seen a little mini like something similar to what the opening that Omo's telling about the fire and the Doctor kind of coming in and all of that. But I think it could have been cool, especially if you kind of framed it in that kind of like folklore sort of legend thing and maybe done some cool visual, like sort of animated stuff. But it's way more powerful to have him go, you're expecting a tale of monsters and space and time travel. Yeah. Like, I think that really gets to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Of this is the kind of stories that are important, but also... Yeah. Because I saw some people being like, oh, why are you talking about Belinda? Why aren't you talking about, like, an adventure that he had? If you go straight into, like this time I was on Calabrox 4 and, got married to a woman made of sand and it turned out that her ankles were made of fish and, like, I think I
would love to have seen that.
That's a forgotten Stephen Moffat script.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure, you could have had something like that. But then that undermines the ending of him being like, here's all of my story. Like,
but it also undermines what happens literally directly after with, like, if you think of the beginning with Omo telling his story of the Doctor and the fire and all of that, that didn't give half as much energy, like, of a Doctor story than what Belinda's nursing, because it filled the tank, didn't it, so to speak?
Yeah.
So and it's a thing about human experiences and just your everyday experiences is way more powerful than anything that the Doctor could have.
And the depth and of all of that.
Absolutely.
And, rather than this kind of fantastical tale.
But hear me out also. Did you feel, and I've only seen it, this bit twice, so I might feel a bit different on rewatch, but did it feel like that wasn't necessarily the direction that chunk was going originally? It felt like he didn't write that and like Russell wrote it. It had a very different vibe to the entirety of the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like he had written that or it had been heavily edited.
With you saying it now, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
didn't.
A bit more Russell.
I was going to say that felt a lot more Russell than everything else in that episode.
That's true, but then maybe that's just something that Russell's asked to be put in, or the same with the, which we'll get to probably later, but like one of the space babies popping up and having
don't even get me started on Poppy. What the hell is that?
Yeah, maybe it's just one of those, because Russell obviously
edits everything. Yeah, of course.
He edits and writes his own stuff in.
Yeah, it was just, I was watching it, and then when that happened, I was like, whoa, that felt really Russell. And then I got back into it and forgot about it. But it's just one of those things. I was like, okay, that felt really Russell. That didn't feel like what I've just watched. And then when I watched the entirety of the episode, I was like, that felt really not like it was necessarily supposed to be there. I liked it, don't get me wrong. True. I did, but it was just, that was one of my things.
It is very different to the rest of it.
Just even tonally, visually. Again, I was okay with it because it was a really good depiction.
Maybe that's almost like a deliberate choice because you're fully in that story as it's happening and you're not in the barbershop anymore.
Yeah,
you've sort of dived into this and how like rich and everything that is, and then the story ends with
in that scene.
That might be a bit of a stretch.
In that scene, that's when we saw Mrs. Flood as well.
Yes.
That also made me feel like, yeah, Russell had a good older play in this one.
Well, she's got to turn up, and she can't really.
Oh, obviously.
She can't really crop up in
when she was
Legos,
like,
can she?
Yeah, I know.
One of the bloody market stall holders.
Do you know what I mean?
You're right,
Have me orange. But I liked how it wasn't a Dalek popped up. Because when it was really funny, because when Shooty said Dalek for the first time, I was like, what? We're going to have a mini little Dalek episode in the middle of this? What's going on? And then he says Cybermen and Weeping Angel, and I was like, okay, that's probably the closest we're going to have to Shooty in the Daleks,
He's
by
like,
the way.
I'll take a Chumbly at this point. Yeah. I'll take a Vervoid. Just, yeah. Yeah, I really liked that scene, and I thought I like the fact that he's championing her.
Yes.
Look how cool my mate is.
Yeah.
And and obviously really cares about her and respects her and looks up to her.
Absolutely.
But also on the other side of that, I think there's a sense of maybe kind of protecting himself.
Well, he feels
and not sharing his own stories.
Well, he's not feeling like it's a space anymore where he can trust them.
Yeah.
So it's a nice deflection.
He's had
that betrayal.
Betrayed, yeah.
So that's nice.
Let's speak about that.
Oh my god, that scene! Shooty acting his arse off. When he said, I trust you with both of my hearts. That dialogue in my little ADHD brain, oh my god, that stimulated me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a great little scene. I really believe that emotional, core and character interaction, that sort of interpersonal stuff.
Yeah.
It just sings. That exchange. It
really touches my heart thinking of the Doctor being so lonely and him finally finding a community where he can be himself, he's accepted, they can share stories, they can share culture, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't see him doing it any other time. And it was so nice then to have that beat where he felt betrayed and feeling like he's never going to find somewhere properly that he can relate and feel a community after having... I mean, Doctor Who's been on our screen for years and he's never been able to feel that since Gallifrey's been gone. Do you know what I mean? He trusts in his companions and he finds community in his companions and the relationships that he has, but that's all very companion family based, isn't it? It's not like a community like Omo's Barbershop.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting, really beautiful sort of element, I think, to highlight that maybe he doesn't necessarily feel as comfortable in this skin as he has previously.
Well, he's been treated completely different, hasn't he?
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily have to be just in episodes like Dot and Bubble.
No.
Or, we get it in Lux and stuff. Just because it's not touched on and we don't necessarily have explicit racism in every episode doesn't mean that he maybe isn't still sort of feeling and trying to find his place.
Yeah.
And maybe that rolls into this kind of not persona, but the maybe slightly heightened, charisma and overconfidence. But no, I thought that scene with him and Belinda in the TARDIS at the start.
Yeah.
It was a really nice moment of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just felt really authentic.
It's also really nice because obviously he couldn't share that necessarily or that experience with Ruby. I know obviously she has had some kind of experience with it with her mum, but not directly. And Belinda sharing that experience that the Doctor does directly, she instantly knew.
Yeah.
And she instantly felt that with him, and that was a really nice moment for them both in the TARDIS as well, and that brought their relationship a lot closer as well.
And I think it was really nice that he's sort of dancing around it a little bit, and like you're kind of like, oh, it's hard to explain, like I guess, not saying you wouldn't understand, but sort of going like, oh, it's and she's like, yeah,
of course,
I get it.
Yeah.
Like look at me. And it's a really, I think it's a really nice thing of he's an alien, she's human.
Yeah, but they're the same.
But they're both sort of outsiders.
Yeah.
They're minorities. Even though they're technically not minorities in as a whole, but like within where they're spending a lot of their time, there's you can't just step out and not sort of have in the back of your mind and finding a place where you don't have to have that awareness and
guard
and being able to be open and vulnerable and trusting and having people afford you that same sort of trust and openness and honesty in return. I thought it was really, really nice. Just that as a concept is beautiful. I think it's really interesting. Apart from the Belinda flashback story bit, is this the first episode to have an all non-white cast?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this the other day. I can't think of...
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, incredible, that's great. Let's have more of that and that kind of diversity. And you know, B, incredible that it's not happened before now.
Yeah.
And I know, obviously, technically it still doesn't because some of the doctors and, you know, Mrs. Flood crops up and all of that. But, like, in the actual sort of main...
body of the episode.
Yeah. All the characters are people of colour.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Like, really, really good.
I loved the visuals and the imagery that accompanied the stories. I thought the design of them was so good. It was so fluent.
And I think that's one of my nitpicks is
really?
that not that in itself, because I think again that's something that not breaks up the dialogue, but it gives it a more of a visual dimension.
Yeah.
You know, whereas because you can imagine this as a play.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have the visuals or you know going outside and seeing a mechanical spider and all of that business. And I think on stage that works because of the conventions of theatre and you know. Mm-hmm. So I think it was quite nice to have those moments where you're sort of making the most of television as and the visual language of television.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen it utilised a bit more, I think.
Oh yeah, I wanted more of it.
That's one of my nitpicks.
Oh, okay. Well, we're on the same then. Yeah, I wanted more also.
Because the sort of animated, the opening with Oma's story about the fire... Yeah. Animated very like traditional like African art style and all of that was gorgeous. Then obviously getting like little flashbacks and the representations of the gods and things like that. Oof. But I don't know, I almost wanted a little bit more of that. You know, maybe when, again, something we'll get to in a bit, when the doctor's talking to Abby about their previous meeting.
I really want to know what you thought. I really want to know.
Maybe that could have been like you could have done something with that visually. I know that,
but we know.
I know that it. I know. Yeah. And I know that it only works when they're sat in the chair and all of that. But you know, a couple of lines of dialogue, you could find workarounds for that.
Yeah.
Or even if it wasn't on the screen, but we just saw it on. Like visually with editing and...
I don't know if that would have worked though.
I don't think it would have been as strong.
No.
But you could maybe do something. But I just think that's such a cool idea to have that kind of window as a visual representation of the, you know, literally bringing the story to life.
Yeah.
And I wanted more of it. And I think that would have... I think people being like, oh, it's too
dialogue.
talky.
Yeah, that would have helped.
Yeah, because it would have been less...
Dialogue, visual verbalisation of what it is.
Just people talking in one room, yeah.
It really, really annoyed me that they used, like, Marvel Loki representation of...
What, they've not got a little Tom Hiddleston showing up, have they?
No, but it looks like him.
Does it?
Yeah. It's like an older man, but that is just Tom Hiddleston, like as an older god.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, now look at the concept art on what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see how that, right? That looks way better and more like within the theme and aesthetic of what they were going for than the other one.
Rather than sort of making it a bit more human and...
And a bit more like, I can see Disney being like watching it or something and be like, oh, can you make that more? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, let's make it look a bit more like Disney's Loki, which you can also find on on Disney Plus.
Well, they get the Marvel films get a little reference, don't they?
Yeah. Because they talk about Endgame, or
the Doctor watched all of the MCU films up to Endgame.
Up to Endgame,
which I really, I don't know if it is, but I really hope is a bit of a jab at Marvel being like, we stopped at Endgame because
everything else has been absolutely awful. Apart from some bits, I like some. I'm not gonna go on a tangent. So the majority of what Marvel churn out is absolutely ridiculous, and it's quantity over quality. But some of the bits.
Yeah,
it's been alright.
Apparently, Thunderbolts is really good.
I saw people's reviews on that and how it's life changing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and catch that this week. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Yeah,
the concept art, and if they went down that road rather than a bit of Disney.
But I think it's interesting to see
what they originally started with and what we ended up seeing.
Yeah,
I think that just looking at them both, I'm just a bit like,
Yeah,
I'd have preferred what they originally started designing. That would have been way better.
But it is a very small sort of
nitpick.
Yeah,
but I think it would have been better thematically, visually, aesthetically. Really.
Speaking of the gods, we'll get onto that. So the barber, who we've not spoken about yet.
The acting was so good. And you know what? I'll take off my hat to that man, because he had to deliver all of his monologue whilst cutting his dreads. And I saw the struggle of him trying to find those dreads to cut, trying to monologue while you're trying to do other things physically at once. And it's an absolute nightmare. And as I was watching that, I was like, I feel your pain. He did so well.
Yeah, he's incredible. Arian Bakari.
Yeah.
So good. So menacing.
Yeah.
But also there's when you get the backstory on sort of unravel, there's so much emotion and heart in it.
Mm-hmm. It was a hearty episode.
Really, really great performance from him. I thought that the whole supporting cast
everyone was
brilliant.
That's my only thing. I wish that we had more time to explore the other
the barber
shop customers.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, other than them doing their little, these are the people who are waiting for me.
Yeah.
We didn't get stories from them.
But I think that's just...
It's just how it is, isn't it?
And I think it's also victim of it being a 45-minute episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's just another...
But I feel like they were decently characterised.
Oh, absolutely. And they all played a role as well. A lot of that
comes from the performance,
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's fairly light on characterisation on the page, I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not fair. It's fair, they don't get a lot to do.
No.
So obviously the details are a little bit more of a sketch rather than a full sort of, But I think they all do really, really well with it. It felt like a proper ensemble piece.
Yeah, it did.
Which is really interesting.
It felt stagey.
Again,
felt
like a play.
That reminds me, it's really funny as well, because there was one moment where the barber walks out of the back room onto the shop floor, and I was like, oh, this is so that's exactly walk with purpose straight down the middle of the shop, and he was like, it's time for another story or whatever he says, and I was like,
downstage right, please.
Yeah, literally, I was like, that's so stagey. It's really funny, but in a good way. It didn't take you out of it, but I was like, that's so stagey.
But the barber, incredible.
Phenomenal. And again, both moments that I cried during this episode were because of his pure emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like,
well, so the backstory, should we say?
Yeah,
he does a big sort of classic RTD monologue.
Yeah,
like we got with Sutek, like we get with the Beast, and it's all, I am the light and the dark, and I am the ink in the quill, and and all of that sort of stuff, which is gorgeous dialogue. And he sells the hell out of it.
Oh yeah,
like you say, whilst
cutting his dreads, incredible.
Really,
really, really good.
Yeah,
really good.
And then we get it subverted.
Yeah,
which I think is really interesting,
mm-hmm.
because that in itself is him telling a story.
Yeah,
and something that we've kind of seen before, fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to go, the Doctor sort of calls him out and goes, "Nah,
no, you're not.
Like
because I've done this. I've done this.
Yeah,
I've done
like
this.
I've met all of these
gods,
which raises an interesting question about which I have seen a few people talk about on Twitter.
Go on.
So the whole sort of pantheon and gods being real thing is a recent development, right?
Right.
Within sort of the Doctor like accepting it,
right,
and just talking about gods as gods.
Okay.
Because you get something like Impossible Planet and
I was
Satan
going
Pit,
to say that scene when
he's
going
like,
down
oh,
into the pit.
demigods and would-be gods and all of that. And it's sort of implied that they're real creatures, they exist, but they're not gods in the traditional sense of
what
deities
a god
and
means,
But it seems that since Wobbly Yonder and the Salt and all of that sort of stuff, that's kind of allowed the more supernatural, celestial, whatever to come in, and the Doctor's accepting that.
Yeah.
So, if he's saying that he's watched the Marvel films with so and so, and he got pissed with someone else, and
caused the drought,
but I've seen some people that are like, so did this happen before he was like 15 and he accepted that gods and things are real?
To.
Which it kind of has to.
It has to if we've got Fugitive.
In which case, why is it such a surprise and like a new thing that gods are real? Or is it implying that the gods that he's talking about here, that he's played chess with and gone to a big night out in Sheffield, like Sheffield,
yes.
Is it implying that they're these like would-be demi-half, not really gods, but creatures who are sort of the inspiration for gods, or would go on to become, or sort of mythologized for you? Do you know what I mean?
Because I see them as separate to what we've got with God of Light and God of blah.
Yeah, like they're not part of the pantheon.
Pantheon, yeah.
So that's a very sort of specific.
Exactly. So
group.
I didn't.
They've got a little clique going on. They're like, no, you're not part of our group.
You can't sit with us.
Like what are you?
Got a what?
No, thank you, darling.
With that hair.
Yeah, I didn't. But I thought that was interesting. That
I kind of didn't clock it. I kind of just accepted it. I didn't really think too deeply into it.
In my head, they're just creatures.
Yeah, because I see like Maestro and like Lux and those kind of guys. I don't know if it's because of how they're characterized and stuff, but I see them as little Pantheon Doctor Who characters. And then if I had like Loki on my screen, for example, I'd think of him as a god. I take him more seriously as like a mythological god.
I think that's interesting because I'm kind of the opposite.
Oh, really?
Like, I think I see like Loki is the idea and the sort of mythology and all of that.
Yeah.
Like kind of what that concept art sort of connotes.
Yeah.
I see as a god.
Yeah.
And like this energy mystical thing.
Yeah.
Whereas characters like Loki or Thor in the Marvel films.
Yeah.
I like that idea that everybody sort of refers to them as gods, but they're just aliens. So they're just aliens that are basically gods to us because their powers and abilities and knowledge and stuff.
I guess that's what they are then.
That's kind of what I have sort of rationalised them as.
Well, I guess...
But even then, that's only because I had to think about it because I saw somebody's tweet and was like, oh, how do I feel about this? That's a fair point.
Well, I guess then that's kind of what it is then.
Yeah.
They are gods or aliens. That's essentially...
That's kind of what or like maybe Dionysus was just some Greek bloke who then got mythologized as the god of theatre.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm happy with I was
going to say I'm not overly first. I think the issue is because Doctor Who contradicts itself so often. I just kind of just let it happen now.
Yeah. I think it depends how severe the contradiction is.
Absolutely.
And if it's I don't really mind so much if an episode now contradicts a throwaway line from 1965.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's fine. I think if an episode now contradicts a line from last week,
oh, that's different.
That's
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different levels of contradiction.
Yeah, and it's all, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna wash with some people.
And it's not.
It's gonna not with others.
I was gonna say I didn't really think that didn't do anything
but
to my
brain. I think it's an interesting sort of.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Thing to think about.
What's the timeline of this?
Yeah.
When did this?
But yeah, I really like the scene.
Yeah,
but talking of timelines and the past.
I need to know what you thought. Because, wait, can I say one thing really quickly?
Yes, that's why I paused.
Only because it's only kind of unrelated. The funniest thing is watching, and I saw it the first time, and every time I see the scene, it makes me chuckle. It's just because you can see, as they were shooting it, someone went, oh, so that the framing's right, Shooty, just stand to your left a little bit, and he moves over. Because it stood there, it pans round, and then he moves ever so slightly, shuffles. And then he shuffles over to like his left a little bit. As he does that, and it switches to Joe, the transition, they're both in the exact same place.
Right.
So someone was stood around the camera, be like, shoot, he left a bit, stand, and then everything was on track, and I can't unsee it. I saw it the first time, saw him move a little bit, I was like, I know exactly what that was for. And now every time I watch it does take me out a little bit, because I'm like, oh, come on, could you not have done another take? Were you that pressed for time that you can just do another roll of that?
Maybe.
So funny.
But yeah.
What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts? I wasn't expecting it.
No.
I'd heard the rumours that she was coming back.
I forgot, so I got that shock all over again.
But I thought it was just because she was at the premiere, wasn't she?
But we can't read into that.
No, that's what I mean. That's what
because
I thought.
Because Michelle Gomez was and now I'm like, Missy's back? No.
And Joe Arando was as well. So Francine Jones returned, please.
Or have we got another New Earth cat coming up?
Yeah, have we got Sister
Japs?
No, I wasn't expecting it, and I thought, that's what I thought the rumours were from. That she's at the premiere, she's gonna be in season 2.
Yeah.
And I kind of dismissed that as just being like, oh right. Okay,
well, yeah,
sure.
I saw that on the thing. I was like, of course.
And then she showed up, and I was like, oh, that's quite cool, actually.
Yeah. There's just a few bits around it, though, isn't there?
There are a few bits around it
because the Doctor's not supposed to remember.
Yes.
But then but it could be echoes. And because I don't really know how I could explain away. I
didn't even think about that when I first saw it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes me a fake fan.
Obviously, and absolutely.
Yeah.
Get out of my flat.
But I just I saw it and went, that's really cool.
Yeah, I loved it.
I really appreciate, especially someone that's not a fan of the Chibnall era, really not a fan of the Timeless Child arc.
No.
Really not a fan really of what they did with the Fugitive Doctor, or rather didn't do.
Yeah. She now she's appeared, she cannot just be cameo Doctor.
I hope not.
I know,
but I really appreciate Russell's doubling down, I guess, on everything that Chibnall did.
Yeah.
Because it would have been very easy to just sort of sweep it under the rug, but also I think he genuinely really, obviously him and Chris are friends, but I think he genuinely really respects
what he's written,
that sort of legacy and the ideas there and all of that conceptual stuff.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's really honouring it. With in the 60th, the Flux coming up.
Yeah.
And the references to Jodie throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the stuff about being adopted and the Timeless Child.
Yeah.
And now you've got Joe Martin coming back in. It just feels like a really nice sort of, this did happen.
Yeah, and
like we're not ignoring it.
Yeah.
Despite all of the
backlash
and the poor reception and all of that, I think it would have been easy and maybe from a marketing perspective, like a sort of branding perspective, to go, let's distance ourselves from anything to do with that. Yeah, I think there's a real sort of integrity to Russell doing that. I like really respect him, and actually like that he's kind of furthering.
He's pushing the narrative.
Yeah, and he's doing something with those elements. And maybe one day I will go, oh, I do actually like those things because of what Russell's done with them.
I was gonna say, I think I'd have accepted all the fugitive stuff and Timeless Child stuff and things like that if it was just had a bit more depth,
anything happened.
If anything happened, yeah. Like if it was just written a bit better, it was an actual arc instead of just like pieces everywhere, and it was a bit muddled and it felt a bit, it just doesn't sit right with me. But I'm hoping that Russell's probably going to be able to save it, because obviously there's the little Easter egg there or little nugget where it's like, oh, hopefully you'll hear my story, blah blah blah, whatever she says.
My story will be finished or something.
I hope that they don't do a big finish and she has a spin-off, because we need, or like a little something, because it needs a visual 5 episodes or so of it. Do you know what I mean? Because I won't listen to it if it's audio. It needs to have some proper story, an arc to it.
She has a Big Finish series.
I know she does, but I don't know what. That's what I mean. I've never seen it. I've never listened to it. I don't know anything.
Big Finish, as soon as this episode went out, announced the second box set
of this
of her series. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
For God's sake! Really?
That's not what it is. That's not what they're referring to. But they just went, Fugitive Doctor, you like that, huh? Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, love the marketing. No, but I agree. I don't think we're getting a spin-off, because I think it's.
I hope in the future we do.
I think the thing is, it feels like quite a hard sell to anyone that's not in the know. Like,
okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, anyone that's not a big Doctor Who fan, if you say this is a spin-off with the Doctor, oh, but isn't that just no, this is a different Doctor. Oh, is this a new one? No, it's an old one. Oh, right, okay. Like, so do I need to watch their bits in Doctor Who before? Well, they didn't really have a series because they weren't like a proper one. Right, what do you mean they weren't a proper one? Well, they sort of, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of.
However, hear me out. God forbid she regenerates.
God forbid.
Right, no. I hope he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But say he's regenerating,
mm-hmm.
and we don't have a Doctor to replace him, and we've got that gap anyway while Disney decides whether they're going to give us some budget or not.
Yeah.
Would it not be a nice little, okay, well, we're trying to do all of the main show Doctor Who stuff. We've got Jo Martin, who would be like, hell yeah, let's go.
Mm.
Would it not make sense to write her story, film it, do that, while they're trying to figure out production for season 3?
Yeah, I guess so.
I understand from your perspective, but also from a making.
I just wonder how successful it would be, other than outside of like the hardcore fans.
Yeah, but I feel like it needs to have episodes though, because I feel like Big Finish. Obviously, not everyone listens to the audio. Not everyone reads the novelizations and all the target books and things like that. I feel like it needs a place on screen.
Yeah, it's
deserved as well, because she is the Doctor, and the only way you're going to really fully accept it is if we get screen time.
Yeah, like
an acknowledgement of she is the Doctor. This is a part of.
I think even because I guess the closest sort of comparisons you've got would be John Hurt as the War Doctor.
Yeah.
But even then,
but
he gets a really good outing. Do you know what I mean? It's not just like cameos and
no. He gets a full episode special, doesn't he?
Yeah, because even Jo Martin's like only episode where she's like in the whole thing.
Of the Jadoon, yeah.
She spends over half of it not as the Doctor.
No, and honestly.
And then it's all just sort of wrapped up in that mystery of who is, and like not like a proper sort of.
That wasn't her episode, and it was 45 minutes, and.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we didn't get a Day of the Doctor.
Whereas even though John Hurt is sharing the screen with Matt and David.
Yeah. They don't take away from where the
No,
story lies.
I think it's almost as much his story as it is Matt's.
100%.
I think David is the supporting.
It's really funny because I even forgot then that Day of the Doctor was Matt Smith's episode. I was like, yeah, because like the whole thing is so centered around the War Doctor and that story. I actually genuinely forgot that was supposed to be 11th Doctor special.
Yeah, it would be nice. I just don't know if, especially if they need to convince Disney.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because if Disney are umming and ahhing over a third series, I can't see him being like, oh yeah, but you can have this spin-off that will have less appeal. Yeah. But
is Disney funding the Sea Devils though?
Yeah. Oh. But it would be really nice. It would be really nice to see her have a proper crack of the whip.
Yeah.
Because I like her. I think she's got I think she's a great actor. I think she's got a really great presence. But I didn't really latch on to
nothing's done with
her Doctor in the same way that there were a lot of people that were being like, even when she first turned up in Fugitive of the Jaloon, like, oh, I'm immediately more interested in her than I am in Jodie's Doctor, and like that she feels so much more like the Doctor than Jodie Whittaker does, and all of this.
I wouldn't say that.
I thought she was.
She felt like a Doctor.
I thought she was a good presence.
Yeah.
But I didn't have enough to sort of get a feel of
I agree.
what she would do in the role.
Yeah.
And I, however many years on, like 5 years on, I still haven't.
No.
I also think that's because she's not had the opportunity to.
Yeah, I don't know. It still feels really weird to me that we had that.
How do you feel about so I've seen some discourse around. At the start, the Doctor's obviously saying this is the first time I've been in this black body, and people are saying it's a little bit convoluted or a little bit messy to have him be like, this is the first time I've been in this black body, and then to show a previous incarnation of the Doctor who is also black.
I think it's different having a black body as a male and a black body as a female.
Yeah, but I think the implication is I think some people read it as, this is the first time I've been black.
Right.
So I'm sort of struggling to fit in a little bit, and this is a place that I found a community.
I mean, but then again, that also kind of ties in with the Doctor not remembering that he was the fugitive Doctor, but then muddies the water when he somehow remembers that he was the fugitive Doctor.
Yeah. I can kind of overlook that or explain it away.
I just read it as, this is the first time I've been in this body as I am now.
Well, I think some people were saying, because the line is, this is the first time I've been in this black body.
Yeah.
And I think...
Yeah, this black body.
This is the first time I've had this body.
This one. I've had it before.
That is black.
Yeah. I've had one before, but this one...
Yeah, I've been black before, but this is the first time I've had... This body.
One. It's semantics, isn't it?
Yeah. But I completely understand why people are like...
That doesn't make sense. Yeah.
This is the first time I've been black.
Yeah.
Some people were saying at the start when I saw it was a bit like, oh, well, that kind of undermines Jo Martin. And then when she shows up, it's a bit like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense because you're contradicting. Reading, isn't it, of that
dialogue, yeah.
With the whole thing of like him remembering, I saw a tweet that was saying about... memory and amnesia and stuff in Doctor Who isn't like absolute. Donna remembers some of her adventures in End of Time.
Yeah.
The 12th Doctor ends up remembering Clara.
Yeah.
Amy crying about Rory even though he's been erased from time, and sort of leaving that impression. I've kind of explained it away in my head as he's processing. He's got the memory. A faint memory of that happening, which is why he maybe doesn't immediately recognise her.
Yeah.
And he's got this story.
Oh, well, I was going to say, it's even referenced in the episode that stories are bleeding through.
Yeah.
So that was my take of it.
Also, I don't necessarily think that he has to be aware that it was the fugitive Doctor that met her.
Yeah.
He just knows that he has met her and knows about it.
Yeah.
Just like with that transition, and when she's talking to
it's just for
Abby,
That's for us.
I think it's for us and maybe for Abby. I don't, because those lines, Shooty's not saying those. Like the 15th Doctor isn't saying those lines. Yeah, I don't think that's in the same way that she obviously isn't actually there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think he necessarily needs to know that it was that version of him.
Yeah, he just has the memory of it.
Yeah, but I get why people.
It was
sort of
a bit murky.
Took a bit of issue with it because it is a little bit convoluted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't.
Again,
really care.
I didn't even really clock it.
Yeah, nor me. It was only
when I was thinking about it.
It was only afterwards when I saw some tweets, and then on my second watch, I was like, "Oh, okay, I get that." It didn't really bother me.
No.
I really liked Abby telling the story about braiding the hair.
Yeah.
That was gorgeous. Like such a nice idea.
It was so nice to weave that in with her showing the Doctor how to escape. How to escape and get to the engine room.
Yeah, I thought that was really nicely done.
All the visuals were so nice.
Again, it's just that completely different lens, and it just feels really like so full of heart and like really immersed in that culture and life. I guess I found myself like smiling a lot in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just even small things, just Shooty walking through that market stall.
Mm-hmm.
Auntie, uncle, all of that like the little bartering and it just felt so full of life. And like
Shooty was in his element. He was really happy.
I think you can tell he, both as an actor but just as a person, that was very invested. I was going to say
this was his best performance.
I think so.
But again, because he was enjoying himself, and this was an episode that he was invested in.
Because obviously he was the one that got Anura Alarms on board. Or like went to Russell and
said, I would like this, if that's okay.
And also the whole thing of having a story set in Africa. But then talking about the Braden, we then get the labyrinth. That was, I thought the direction was solid. I don't think there were like loads of standout moments.
No.
But also I don't think this is an episode that really required them, if that makes sense. Because so much of it is just people talking in a room. But I was never bored by that. And I think to do that in such a small set with small ensemble of actors to consistently keep that visually interesting
did a really good job.
Is something in itself. Even though there weren't loads of like showy moments. You know, you've got the Doctor opening the door and them all sort of all being almost blown out, and I think the big standout one for me was when the Doctor and Belinda run into the maze, and you get that gorgeous shot that like pans up. And you see the maze from above, like the bird's eye view, and then panning back down. Yeah, that was really nice. But yeah, should we get into the ending?
Yeah. The design of the tree, I liked it. It did feel a bit, and this is just me, again, nitpicking. Everything looked stunning, but the tree took me out of it because I could tell what it was made out of, and it looked like cassette dressing. I was just looking at it, I was like, I probably would have designed it just a little bit different. Again, me nitpicking, but the story, the acting with it. How did you feel about all the little Doctor clips? Because it was really funny seeing the first Doctor in colour and then the second Doctor in black and white. I was like, what?
You're like, yeah, we're not colorised that one yet.
Yeah, we're not gonna. Yeah, we haven't done that one yet. Yeah, so sorry, it's still in black and white.
Yeah, I really liked it. I know there are a lot of people that are like, oh, another clip show saves the day. And I didn't think it was that.
It was.
I think it was, again, just a visual representation of what was happening
as he was talking.
Because it's, again, I think one of the reasons when the Doctor first sits in the chair and tells a story, he doesn't say anything about himself. Is because then that undermines this ending when he goes. It's a bit like Matt's speech in Rings of Akaten.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want stories?
You want stories? I'll give you stories. Yeah.
Like, and I really enjoyed the Hemingway 6-word story reference.
Yeah.
And the I'm born, I die,
I'm born. I love that.
That's a really lovely.
I saw someone say that should be Shooty's regeneration speech if he regenerates. And now if he does regenerate and I don't have that, I'm going to scream and cry.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
When he does go, I really hope that would be really, really beautiful.
That'd be a nice little callback.
It would, yeah.
But yeah, I didn't mind all the clips and things.
Well, that's at the end of that sequence before Belinda runs away. Like, he tells Belinda to go and he's talking to the barber. That's what was making me cry. That exchange between the doctor and the barber.
Oh, sorry, where he's saying,
where he's sat on the floor crying, and this is yeah. All of that.
That was a nice moment.
Yeah, I just sat there sobbing.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those where, yeah, maybe on paper it's a little bit predictable, and it's like the classic thing of like what the villain wants, and you give him that, but you give him way too much, and it's gonna, it's because I guess it's a little bit in the same way as a kind of like a Power of Love ending. Do you know what I mean? Like in a
right.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you my story, and that will do this. But
that's the point.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, right. That's why you're accepting of it.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just felt like a really poetic sort of end to it.
Yeah.
I think especially because the Doctor had obviously kept his cards quite close to his chest.
Yeah.
After the betrayal.
Yeah.
I really like that line. Like I am a barbershop. Like all their stories live inside me.
I loved all that.
I know some people sort of like roll their eyes a bit when you get the Doctor's theme blast in and like a.
Well, that's the one thing that took me out.
Oh, really?
And I'm really sorry, Sam. When that whole exchange was happening and you just had the 15th, but because I feel like they needed to re-edit, you know how they changed Doctor's themes to fit the tone of what's going on? I felt like tonally that version of the 15th Doctor's theme was jarring with what was going on, and it was
when all the clips are showing up.
It was the exchange of the Doctor doing his speech and then trying to convince the barber to like, oh, is this how your story's going to end? What's your 6-word story? All of that.
I'd say maybe that bit, maybe the bit with the barber.
Yeah.
But I think
with all of his
with all the clips showing up, it's very like
that's fine. It's
like
when
I am the Doctor play it, the big triumphant sort of. I don't mind that.
No, it was when he was speaking to him directly, and they had that face to face. It was that face to face scene at the end. Because all I remember, I was trying to watch it, and I was just like, oh, it's actually it's really jarring. I wish they would have just toned his theme down a little bit and just had it. It felt like it just was jarring a bit with the scene.
Yeah.
I wanted them to just.
I didn't really notice it, I'll be honest. But what I will say, I thought the score generally was gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's some really, really nice moments. The score during the when the Doctor confronts Omo.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Really, really nice moment there.
Yeah.
And also there's a really nice rendition of 15's theme. I forget which part it was in. I want to say it's when he's talking to Belinda in the TARDIS at the start.
Yeah.
Just a really like subdued, you just hear the melody like really slowed down, really nice sort of vulnerable version of that big bombastic sort of, yeah. I mean the score this whole season's been great.
Bang on, yeah.
Like really, really good. I'm sure we can have a deep dive into that at some point.
Yeah, I'm
perhaps with a certain someone. But yeah, I really liked the ending. The one thing I will say that's like maybe my biggest nitpick, I'm not sure how I feel about the pacing of it generally.
Yeah.
I think maybe part of that is because it's all in one room.
Yeah.
And sort of almost all one long scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously when the Doctor and Belinda run, that's the start of the third act.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of on my first watch when that happened, being like it felt like
halfway
the second
through.
act or halfway through. Yeah.
That's what I meant by at the beginning. Structurally, there were bits I would tweak.
It's another one of those episodes that I'd have loved to have seen an hour-long version of.
Needed more time. This is the first one this season, which I would have wanted more time for.
I think this one could have benefited from it,
but only because I was enjoying it so much.
I say that every week.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's not a major thing. Like it wasn't egregiously poorly paced.
No.
But it's one of the reasons I can't be like, oh, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What did you think about Poppy then? What do you think Poppy's all about?
When you first see her, I just assumed that it was the same actor.
Because Russell was like, I want to use her again. Like, she was so... Like, he said back in season 1, he was like, she was so... Like, that's why we had so much of Poppy, because she was so... On screen, she was so responsive.
Yeah.
She was so good. He wanted to find an opportunity to use her again.
I see. Yeah, I thought they'd just gone... Because they filmed it basically straight after, yeah. So I thought they'd just gone, oh, can we get... Oh, she was good. Do you reckon she'd come back for... But I didn't really know what it was about. Like, why is there a kid?
Yeah.
And then when it didn't come back into the story, I was like, oh, okay, so it probably is her because we're doing some kind of arc thing.
I was going to say, because I thought nothing of it. I just thought, okay. Well, I didn't know. That's a lie. When she came running on and gave a wave, and I was like, is that Poppy? I was like, that's really bizarre. I was like, okay, what are they doing with that? Because they're not just going to have some random kid wave at Belinda and then run away again. I was like, okay, that's weird. And then at the end, when Belinda was like, oh, so what was that creepy kid all about? And the doctor was like, what kid? And then he was like, oh, just stories leaking out and things like that. I was like,
yeah.
Okay. Why are you going to be in the finale? What role are you?
Well, Anita Dobson, I think she was at a convention or something.
Oh yeah.
She was saying like it's all one thing. It all comes back round, and like even like the Space Babies from Space Baby sequel for the finale. Yeah.
I liked it, but not that much.
No, I think it will just be.
Could you fucking imagine those little push check?
I think it will just be some kind of meta stuff. The Doctor's own stories are like exactly that, are leaking into. I'm not totally convinced that they're not going to do the it's a TV show thing.
I don't think they're going there.
I don't want them to.
I can't see that happening.
But I'm not 100% sure that they're not going to. I hope not. But
what I will say is if Poppy is coming back for the finale for some reason, I don't know how I'm going to, and again I'm thinking future me now, I don't know how I'm going to respond to that in the finale, only having her come in on episode 5 and then we've got episode 6 and then the finale. Yeah, so I don't know how I'd feel about that kind of, but again I don't know, because
I don't think she's going to be like a massive player. It's not like, oh, you've only been reintroduced in episode 5, but you're the big bad of the season finale.
Could you imagine? She's the third one of the unholy trilogy. It's the Rani, Omega, and Captain Poppy. You heard it here first. Oh no, I just linked the finale.
Leaks.
I
don't know.
I don't know.
I have.
I hope it's not another thing. If Poppy's this season Snow, I'm gonna lose my mind. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they do. No. So what would you rank this?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10?
Yeah.
Same.
No.
Yep.
This is a podcast first. No. This is a first.
This is a first.
Because even our ranking of Midnight isn't the same.
Isn't it?
No. What's yours?
10.
9.5.
Ugh. Yeah, we very rarely
agree
completely.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll be in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, very rarely. I can't believe that.
But yeah,
this is
9
great.
9 out of 10 for me.
Whoop whoop.
Well, yeah. That's a new theme tune, I think. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah. We don't
going
need
a cappella. Yeah, let's have a look what other people thought.
Okay.
So, we've got one here from Alexander. A little disappointed Loki wasn't represented by Jim Carrey's Mask, but otherwise really good. I only had time to watch the 8 a.m. release, so going to give it another go tomorrow, but still pretty good first time round. Side note, got my friend to watch Lucky Day, and it was really funny. I dread to think. I'm assuming
I want to know if that's their first episode.
I'm assuming so.
Could you imagine that being your first introduction to Doctor Who?
Blimey.
Oh my! On so many layers.
On, yeah. Jean-Luc says, my only real nitpick was the Doctor remembering when they were the fugitive.
Yeah.
But even then, the moment still hit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair comment.
I can't disagree with that. He's also gone on to say, really enjoyed it. Felt incredibly human and had a lot of heart. Generally had tears in my eyes at parts. Really cool and unique concept and some really solid character stuff. This is why Shooter needed black writers in his first season. Another banger.
Facts.
Yep. I've got to agree.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all.
We've got one here from Ben. I absolutely love that. It's bizarre to say this about an episode with a giant mechanical spider transport pod, but it felt very down to earth. That focus on stories, faith, traditions made it feel very personal. Mm-hmm. I was properly captivated. We didn't really speak about the spider.
My big spider boy.
Yeah.
I got really upset when he just wanted to come through the door, and they didn't let him go through the door. They zapped him back out into space. And he exploded!
He did a big explosion.
He did a bit... Yeah. I would have taken him home. He would have been my pet.
Where would you have put him?
Well, I've got a big spider on my collection shelf.
Yeah, I'm just thinking...
So next to him?
Considering he had a barber shop on his back, size-wise...
Well, we can do some timey-wimey thing and make him small.
What's the... when he was like a baby?
No. What's the master? His little...
What, the little tissue compression?
Yeah, we'll just do that. And I'll put him in a tank.
How did you feel about it being like a machine rather than a creature?
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Oh. I'm not too fussed then, to be honest.
Right. Okay.
That went right over my head.
Yeah, because it was all mechanical and...
Honestly, I'm really sorry. I just saw Big Spider and that's all I saw.
Yeah, I'm surprised you've managed to give any kind of like analysis of this episode based on that fact.
Uh-huh.
I thought I was just gonna be talking
about a big spider for an hour.
But yeah. But no, cool design.
Yeah, I really like the design.
I thought that was what was going to be Anansi and the storyteller god and all of that.
Same.
And that was the god that they were feeding and you know, all of this.
Yeah, I didn't
Which
realize.
I guess they kind of were to make it go.
I was going to say, well, they were feeding it, but the stories were fuel, essentially.
Yeah, but...
Design was really, really cool.
Yeah, cool design. Really cool design.
I'd still have him on my collection shelf, don't
worry. Matthew says, probably my least favourite of the season, but still a very good episode. 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And if that doesn't speak to the quality of this season...
I was going to say, well, that's just feeling like Russell's first season. Like, even the ones that were, like, not at the top were still bangers.
As in...
Like...
Eccleston.
Series. Yeah, series.
Yeah. The only real weak link of that series is
if you
the
say
long
game, I'm going to... But it's not even that bad.
It's
not even that bad. No,
it's great.
I still give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, God, no.
So, and remember when we agreed that this was a 9 out of 10?
Absolutely
and that's why I celebrated.
Absolutely not. Tyler says, after a rewatch, pretty damn great. Some plot holes, though. Are these the same gods as the Pantheon? If the Doctor knows the gods, then why is the Pantheon new and a big deal?
Yeah.
For a series that is focused on this new threat, it's odd to have gods here without connecting them. Outside of that, though, stellar performances, music and production design. The Barber is such a great character. His presence was astounding. And the concepts at play felt fresh but perfect for the audience. And, of course, that cameo. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again.
Fair points.
Yeah.
Fair points. Ruby has said, the look into the culture was really interesting. I love the storytelling elements so much.
Yeah.
And finally, Chaz says, very good. All that needs to be said, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and on that note, you know, could have saved us an hour and a half of
I was gonna,
there, Chaz.
We should have opened with that.
Yeah.
And then we didn't need to sit here for the past 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Chaz, can you make sure that you comment next week?
Yeah.
Just to save us a bit of time.
Yeah.
I've got a lot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you love spending 3, nearly 4 hours with me every week.
Yeah.
You love editing me.
Yeah. So fun. But yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments.
Yes, thank you very much.
And sharing your thoughts with us.
Keep them coming again. Kat will remember to put tweets out asking for people's thoughts for the rest of the series, won't you?
I absolutely will. I have such a good memory, and that's definitely going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, speaking of next week, pod might be a little bit later.
Because we've been really consistent so far.
Yeah, we've been so consistent. No, we always. I'm always trying to get them out on a Wednesday, like a Wednesday evening. But sometimes technical issues happen. Yeah, the editing's quite a lot.
And I don't have the capacity to edit, so I'm completely out.
Doesn't help at all.
I having help it. I don't have the knowledge.
So I'm all on my own.
Yeah.
Nobody here beside me. Yeah, so we're having to record a little bit later because of various work things that I've got on. So probably looking at maybe Thursday. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not Friday, but definitely before the following episode.
That'll be great.
We'll get that out, but maybe you can put a tweet out or something.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do that.
If they're interested. Yeah. They might not be. I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah.
No, that's not our podcast. Who says who?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we do the big wrap up?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
We will see you next week, should you wish to join us.
Yes.
At a slightly later time, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at simplykatie_xo. Mm-hmm. They can also find me on Instagram. On at simplykatie_xo.
Oh, that's
I know,
new.
just popping my Instagram
in the gram.
I know, okay. Only because I've started doing my cosplay stuff actually consistently. Where can they find you?
I'll tell you where they can find me. Thank you very much for asking after a slight pause.
I'm so sorry.
They can find
Edit it out.
They can find me on Twitter at Sudden Biscuit and also on YouTube on the Sudden Biscuit YouTube channel, which you may very well be watching this here podcast on now. Very
That
now.
was great. Very now.
Thank you. I'm a bit tired. Yeah, but in the meantime, thank you. Hope you enjoyed this week's Docky Who.
Yeah.
Hope you're looking forward to
next week's Docky Who.
Next week's.
Next week's.
Hope you enjoyed the one that's been on.
Yeah.
I hope you're going to enjoy the next one and the rest of them. Just enjoy it.
Just enjoy Doctor Who.
Just enjoy it.
Just do it.
God.
Just do it.
What's wrong with you?
God.
Just enjoy it.
Goodbye.
Just goodbye. Okay? Bye.
Bye.
I did lose my mind a little bit towards the end of that one. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
See you next week.